something is coming that is far beyond you and I. Unless you set my people free. I'm not negotiating. Too late. Remember this for eternity. Exodus, Gods and Kings, rated PG-13.
Hello and welcome to Time About the Movies. Today we are taking a look at the 3 films that make up December 12, 2014. We do have a couple of good movies, but of course we got to start with a really bad movie. And nothing says, a big adaptation of the Ten Commandments by having a movie directed by Ridley Scott that features 2 people who are not even close to the right race to play these characters here. We'll get to that in just a second, but Exodus, Gods and Kings. This is, of course, the story of one man's daring courage to take on the might of an empire. Using state-of-the-art visual effects and 3D immersion, Scott brings new life to the story of the defiant leader Moses, played by Christian Bale, as he rises up against the Egyptian pharaoh Ramesses, played by Joel Edgerton, setting 600,000 slaves on a monumental journey of escape from Egypt and its terrifying cycle of deadly plagues. So yeah, it's pretty much the Ten Commandments in a remake of the Ten Commandments, essentially, except the commandments don't even show up until the very end of the movie. And really, this movie is just a waste of potential all across the board, and it cements Ridley Scott at nothing of but a shell of what he used to be. I mean, yeah, he'd have a couple of movies here and there after this that were good, like his next film, The Martian, and then a couple years later he would have House of Gucci, which I think is pretty fun. But yeah, ever since then, though, he's not the same person he was before. He keeps going back to Aliens. He keeps going back to Gladiator. I've touched on this before, but to this movie's credit, though, the special effects are impressive overall. The plagues, it's a cool scene. The final climax with the parting of the Red Sea is really good. I mean, but as we say, visuals don't always make the movie. The acting is very good in here. There was a lot of controversy back then about the fact that, you have Christian Bale and Joel Edgerton playing these characters. They made a big deal about, what about all the Egyptian actors out there? And I completely agree with you, but nobody seemed to have a big deal back when the Ten Commandments came out, where you had a California-born Charlton Heston as Moses and Russia-born Yul Brynner as Ramesses. I mean, I get the point, but it's just at the same time, it's just kind of like, you gotta take one way or the other with this whole thing here, people. But yeah, the visuals are great, but what do we always say on here? They don't make the movie. Everything else about this is just lousy and uninventive, and with a reputation like Ridley Scott, and especially with a reputation from the Oscar-winning writer of Schindler's List, Steven Zazilian, you expect so much more for this. The characters are lacking of emotion or development, and it doesn't help that the script is so bland and forgettable. A guy like Steve Zazilian, who's written so many good movies, he's directed great movies. Searching for Bobby Fischer is one of those good examples. Like, you're telling me that you can't give us good character development for these characters? There's a huge problem here. If the cast looks like they don't care about what they're doing here, then why should we? But the biggest problem with this movie overall is the editing, which is absolutely abysmal. It ruins the pacing of the film. It takes a lot of the epicness of these big action shots. The editing is so bad. The parting of the Red Sea it's exciting, but it's not as exciting as it should be. How do you mess up one of the most memorable stories in this? Now granted, Fox had a hand in editing this down from a supposed 4-hour cut that Ridley Scott had, but, Ridley Scott's got to stop making these epic long movies, because I'm getting sick and tired of these long director's cuts that are coming way after the movie has been released. Kingdom of Heaven was one of those examples where the cut that was in theaters was terrible, but the movie he made that was the extended cut was good. But unfortunately, he had to wait 4 months for the movie to come out on DVD to have that happen. And here, we've not seen that director's cut since then. I don't think it has been released as far as I'm concerned. No, it's never been released. So what's the point? Why not just make one movie as it is, instead of just, coming in there and making this condensed down version of it? But, Exodus, Gods and Kings has a lot of the same problems that his Robin Hood movie had. The script is lousy, the characters are badly developed, the action sequences are lame and poorly edited. Sometimes they look cool, but The entire movie is edited into a sloppy mess that makes for one of the worst movies of the year, and it takes one of the most well-known biblical stories of all time and just doesn't do anything with it. If you really want to see the story done well in a movie, watch the Ten Commandments. Hell, watch The Prince of Egypt. The Prince of Egypt is one of those animated movies that you don't really think about it at first, but as time goes on, you realize that movie is much better than you initially thought it was. I know that was the case for me when I first saw it. I was like, it's good and all that, but yeah, the more I've watched it since then, the more I realize that, yeah, this movie is absolutely amazing and definitely should have gotten more attention back then, which it does have now. But sadly, Ridley Scott joins that list of people and filmmakers where I just go like, it's the three strikes list, man. The three strikes list is what I use to judge once great, talented actors and directors. And if they make 3 bad movies in a row and don't redeem yourself, you're out of here. You know, Jason Freeberg, Aaron Seltzer were in that list. M. Night Shyamalan was in that list before he revived his career the following year with The Visit. Katherine Heigl, Johnny Depp, Luc Besson, and now Ridley Scott with the biggest disappointments in decades. Robin Hood, Prometheus, The Counselor. That's 3 movies right there. Four times the charm, man. And, you know, Ridley Scott and I, and in the words of Christian Bale, we're done professionally. Fucking ass. And then, of course, he follows it up the year later with a good movie, and then goes back to crap again. But we'll touch on The Martian next year in 2015. But in the meantime, let's get to the good movies. Let's go to one of the best movies of the year that, once again, nobody went to go see. Top 5.
America's biggest star
It's heavy time! You're black ass crazy.
is coming home for the holidays.
Chelsea doing a story on me? No snitching.
I'm gonna turn over like an apple pie.
You just ate an apple pie, you fat.
Chris Rock, top 5, rated R.
Yet another one of those great movies that was highly praised when it came out and then just flopped at the box office because the studio, I think, didn't really do their homework on how to sell this movie in general. I don't think they really were giving it that push to be the Oscar contender that they probably were expecting it to be, but this is still a fantastic movie, man. Chris Rock stars as a comedian who's trying to make it as a serious actor when his reality TV star fiancée, played by Gabrielle Union, talks him into broadcasting their wedding on her TV show. Throughout the film, he's being interviewed by a New York Times reporter, played by Rosario Dawson, who asks him about his personal life and what made him want to stop doing comedy. Of course, this isn't Chris Rock's first time behind the director's chair. He also did I Think I Love My Wife, which is another underrated gem of a film. And he also did Head of State, which is overall okay. Nothing too spectacular, nothing too amazing, but I still enjoyed it. But this right here is not just Chris Rock's best directorial outing. It is easily one of the best movies of the year. One of the funniest comedies I had seen in a long time when I first saw this. I mean, everyone was putting this as Chris Rock's Annie Hall, and this is definitely that. This is a very smart, very clever, very funny film that proves that Chris Rock is definitely a comic force that's not to be messed with. It's a very funny satire on the same levels as Funny People that not only allows Rock to lampoon himself, but also Hollywood too. There's also a lot of satirical jokes about not just Rock himself, but him lampooning Adam Sandler's work. Like I said, he's lampooning Adam Sandler's work, celebrities are getting arrested, reality shows, just so many other things that would take too long to go on about. But the most interesting aspect of this is that it doesn't fall for the same romantic comedy cliches. Even when it looks like it's going to. Like, there's a great scene where Rock and Dawson are getting ready to have sex in the bathroom, but they don't. And for a romantic comedy to not go into those cliches, that's awesome. That's okay in my book. A great cast in this movie in general here. Rock and Dawson are great together. The other actors in here are great. You see a little bit in that trailer there, you know. J.B. Smoove, Romany Malco, Gabrielle Union, Tracy Morgan, Ben Vereen, Kevin Hart, Sherry Shepard, Leslie Jones, Michael Che, Cedric the Entertainer, Jay Farrow, cameos by people like Jerry Seinfeld, Whoopi Goldberg, Adam Sandler, Taraji P. Henson, DMX. I mean, this is a good cast in this movie, and the drama is really good too. 2 scenes in particular really took me by surprise and how much I enjoyed it. There's one where Rock's character Andre just loses it, and it's one of the running gags of the movie. Like, he's known for being this character in Hammy the Bear. He comes back in his face. It comes back in his face when he's in a grocery store getting drunk and looking around and seeing that they actually have a Hammy the Beer available, and he just snaps big time. Like, it's a scene where I could honestly see a celebrity known for one thing that everyone loves, losing their shit big time and doing the exact same thing that Rock did in that scene in real life. Like, I think the more funnier scene in this is where you see DMX singing Charlie Chaplin's Smile, and you hear DMX singing a Charlie Chaplin song, and it's the biggest laugh of the movie. I never thought I would see the day where DMX would be singing a 1930 song without rapping at all. If there's any real flaws with this movie, there's a couple of things. One, Cedric the Entertainer, like I said, he's fine in this, but he is kind of acting a little over the top in one scene in particular. I like what that scene was trying to do, but the over-the-top acting kind of ruins it overall. The other big one that really bothered me was the whole subplot about James Nielsen and how he's got a grudge against Andre Allen, you know. And for some reason, by the third act, it turns out it's actually Rosario Dawson's character Chelsea, the woman who was interviewing him. That was supposed to be, the big third act breakup of the film. And it's like, really? I mean, first of all, the whole James Nielsen is actually Chelsea thing feels very weird and out of place. I mean, is the movie trying to imply that critics are just playing a character when they review their stuff? It just seems so out of place, and they don't really give much of an explanation of how this actually makes sense. I mean, I didn't get it when I first saw it. When I watched this again, I still didn't get what they were trying to do here. It kind of felt like what was that movie? I just had it in my head and I completely forgot about it. No joke. I literally had it in my head while I was talking about it, and then it just completely fell out of my head. Fell out of me. So I don't remember it. I'll probably remember it well after I'm done with this movie. But yeah, those were the couple of flaws I have with the movie, but I still really enjoyed the hell out of this movie. I think it is still one of the smartest and funniest comedies I've seen in years. Chris Rock gets a chance to show his range as not just a great comedic actor, but also a great dramatic actor, and he does play it very well here. The actors overall are really good, the comedy is really good, the story runs fluently, the pacing is very good. It's definitely a movie that is one of the best movies of the year, easily, and one that should be recommended to be checked out. If you haven't seen Top 5, see it. It's definitely worth it. So there you go. That's top 5. So let's go ahead and move on to our last movie that we have here, and that is Paul Thomas Anderson's latest film, Inherent Vice. And let me tell you, once this trailer starts, you know you're watching a Paul Thomas Anderson movie.
If it's a quiet night out at the beach and your ex-old lady suddenly out of nowhere shows up with a story about her current billionaire land developer boyfriend and his wife and her boyfriend and a plot to kidnap the billionaire and throw him in a loony bin,
I need your help, Doc.
maybe you should just look the other way. But if you're Doc, it may all start to get a little peculiar after that.
Michael Z. Wolfman
Mickey Wolfman.
Mickey Wolfman.
has vanished.
So where would I find him?
He's technically Jewish, but wants to be a Nazi.
And a girl don't necessarily want to get into difficulties with those folks.
Got a spare picture I could borrow?
That's still my favorite moment in the whole movie, where Joaquin Phoenix is asking for the picture, and he looks at it and he just starts screaming, "Ah!" And just like, nothing at all. Like, that's still my favorite scene in the movie. But did you see what I was talking about? The opening shot feels like a Paul Thomas Anderson shot. Like, it's just, I mean, it doesn't look, I mean, when you really look at it, it feels like, yeah, this is definitely a Paul Thomas Anderson movie we're going into here. But this is, of course, based off the novel by Thomas Pynchon, where it's taking place during the psychedelic 60s and 70s, where you have Larry Sportello, a.k.a. Doc, played by Joaquin Phoenix, surprised by his former girlfriend, played by Catherine Waterston, and her plot for a billionaire boyfriend, his wife, and her boyfriend. A plan for kidnapping gets shaken up by the oddball characters entangled in this groovy kidnapping romp. That's Warner Brothers that wrote that, not me. And I'll be honest, the trailers made this come off as like a big Lebowski-style movie, and I thought, okay, that's something that actually would be really exciting. And then I watched the movie, and it was a weird one at first, when I first saw it. I didn't really hate it, but I didn't really love it either. So I watched it again recently, especially with One Battle After Another coming out, becoming that great movie that it is. And I will say that I like this movie more now than I did when I first saw it. I did enjoy the movie overall. I thought the performances overall were really good. I like the cast they assembled in here. You know, as I mentioned, Joaquin Phoenix, Catherine Waterston, Josh Brolin, Owen Wilson, Eric Roberts, Reese Witherspoon, Benicio del Toro, Jenna Malone, Maya Rudolph, Martin Short. A lot of really, really good people in this movie. And yeah, it's a movie where it has grown with me over time. I think the visual style overall was pretty solid overall. And the comedy is very hit and miss. I think the funniest moments are in the trailer, where you see that scene I just mentioned before about him screaming at the picture, and then the cops just pushing him around for no particular reason. But I mean, it's a movie where it took time for me to really realize how much I enjoyed it. Kind of like his other movie, Magnolia, which was a film that was highly polarized when it came out, but as time goes on, people have seen it as as a really good masterpiece that it actually is. Because it is a very underrated film that does take time to really appreciate the true beauty of it. And it is and Inherent Vice definitely is that in particular. A lot of really good shots in this. The cinematographer Robert Elswith does a good job with the cinematography overall, and Catherine Waterston in this movie, man, Jesus, I mean, she is gorgeous in this movie. 1970s gorgeous. I mean, this film does a good job of feeling like you're in the 1970s, and it just works all across the board in terms of the visual style. Definitely not one of his better movies, but definitely a movie I appreciate better than I did when I first saw it. At the time I first saw it, it was just kind of like, it's alright, but nothing spectacular, nothing amazing about it. But definitely as time has gone on, I've really come to appreciate the overall enjoyment of the movie in general. I think it is a very solid film. Like I said, definitely not one of his better movies overall, but certainly a lot better than it was when I first saw it. I highly recommend checking it out, especially if you just saw one battle after another. This is definitely a movie worth checking out. Inherent Vice is definitely one that should be seen and is definitely worth it. I would highly recommend checking it out, Inherent Vice. And so with all that said, we wrap up another episode of Time About the Movies as we get to the penultimate weekend of 2014. Pre-Christmas weekend, where we have the conclusion of Peter Jackson's prequel trilogy to The Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, Battle of the Five Armies, with, a movie that where the last movie left off with a promising tease for what was coming, and boy, you're going to be very disappointed if you love the character of Smaug. We'll touch on that tomorrow. But we also have the third and final installment of the Night at the Museum series coming 5 years after the last movie, Secret of the Tomb. Didn't know what I was expecting going into that one, but kind of surprised at what I saw. And speaking of surprises, one that I will defend to the very end, we'll also take a look at the remake of Annie, starring Cameron Diaz, Jamie Foxx, and also Quavonza Wallace from Beasts of the Southern Wild. It was a movie that I liked back when it came out, and I will still defend it because I still think it's better than the original Annie movie. We'll touch on that on tomorrow's show. But with all that said, thank you so much for watching this. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please go ahead and do me the honors of hitting that like button, that subscribe button, and that notification button. Also, don't forget to check out our playlist, and don't forget to check out the previous episode we did. So with all that said, whether it's in the past, the present, or the future, I will see you at the movies. Take care.